Hey guys, Yips here, coming up with another video, and today I want to take some time to talk about Demonology Warlock CDs in the current raid tier. Last time I made a video about Destro Warlock CDs, I saw in the comment you guys were asking for something similar for Demon Warlock, and here it is. The two things that I really want to focus on in this video are the single target potential of Demonology Warlock, as well as the AoE burst potential of Demonology Warlock, and those are the two things that Demo Warlock really excels at in the current raid tier. I'm going to apologize in advance. The first part of this video will be a little bit dry, where I just sort of go over the Demo Warlock single target rotation, talk about a little of the niches that can go through as you're experiencing your second and third tyrant. Afterwards, we'll get into the more interesting stuff on how to min-max your AoE. So if you're interested, just skip forward in the video, find the part where I'm talking about that AoE stuff. I'll probably pin it in the comment section below, the timestamp for that. But for now, if you're new to Demo Warlock and you're kind of curious about how it works on single target, this would be a great part for you to learn. So, Demo Warlock on single target, how does it all function? The idea for Demo Warlock is you have a cooldown Demonic Tyrant. It extends the duration of all of your other demons that you have by 15 seconds. So say I were to summon some imps. Boop. These imps only have a few second duration before they fade, but if I press my Demonic Tyrant, it would extend that small duration by 15 seconds. So you saw they faded there after a few seconds. If I was to use Tyrant, it would just add 15 seconds onto that timer. Same thing if I were to use a cooldown like my Call Dreadstalkers, which lasts 12 seconds. Whenever I use my demonic Tyrant cooldown, say it had 5 seconds left, it would then jump up to 20 seconds. Very, very basic in how it works. However, all of these demons that you're summoning and are getting extended actually go in to buff the amount of damage your Tyrant does through the talent Demonic Consumption. It drains the life from your demon servants to empower himself. He also drains life from you to empower himself. He gets a huge amount of bonus damage for having more minions available to him that have a high amount of HP. And we're actually going to buff those minions through Soul Rot and the mastery that it grants you from Naya. So the demons that we're looking to use with our Tyrant: Grimoire Felguard, Summon Vile Fiend, Call Dreadstalkers, and a few imps. The Dreadstalkers, the Vile Fiend, and the GFG are the important ones and the ones that you really want to be extending with your Tyrant. The imps are not really optional, but they're a nice sort of addition to it, and they do add a little bit of extra damage. So what does a typical opener look like for a Demo Warlock in raid? Well, for Demo Warlock in raid, what you're going to start with is Soul Rot into GFG, into your Vile Fiend, Dogs, Imp Spam. And what that will look like is you're going to precast a Demon Bolt, Soul Rot, Grimoire Felguard, Summon Vile Fiend, double Shadow Bolt, cast your Dogs, Shadow Bolt twice, Hand of Gul'dan, Shadow Bolt once, Hand of Gul'dan, Summon Demonic Tyrant. And that's a pretty standard single target opener if you get no procs. If you get procs, it can look slightly different, those procs being Demonic Calling. This makes your Dreadstalkers free, which is really nice. It allows you to have more shards for those imps, which don't matter as much, but are still kind of a nice little sprinkle on top. And you can also get Demonic Core procs from the trait Born of Blood. Hand of Gul'dan has a chance to give you a proc of Demonic Core, so as you saw that in my opener when I pressed my Hand of Gul'dan, I actually got a Demonic Core proc, which is instant. It's basically a better version of Shadow Bolt that gives you 2 shards and is instant instead of having a cast time and only giving you 1. This could potentially allow you to get an extra Hand of Gul'dan cast in the opener. However, that being said, what I showed you there was a procless opener and something that you can kind of rely on to do every single time regardless of what's happening. Now, as you go through your rotation and as you're approaching your second and third Tyrant, these procs are not so RNG. They're things that you can control for. Having procs available for your Demon Bolt going into your second and third Tyrant are things that you can control and things that you're going to want to have. So when my cooldowns come back up here, I'll do that same sort of opening rotation. If I get procs, I'll weave them into it, but then I'll talk more importantly about the second Tyrant and the third Tyrant and what those are going to look like and the things that I'm thinking about as they're coming back up. So just have to wait about 10 more seconds here for my GFG. And the things we're going to be thinking about here are the demonic core procs and how that functions, because when your Dreadstalkers fade, you're guaranteed to get 2 of them. So here we go. Precasting my Orb of Torment and going with the rotation. So Demon Bolt, Soul Rot, Grimoire Felguard, Summon Vile Fiend, Shadowbolt, Shadowbolt, some of the doggos, Shadowbolt, Shadowbolt, Hand of Gul'dan, Shadowbolt, Hand of Gul'dan, Summon Demonic Tyrant, Hand of Gul'dan, press my spinny spinny, and we go on with our lives. So for the rest of the rotation, it's pretty basic. You're just keeping your dogs on cooldown. There's not really too much to think about. You're going to be using your Hand of Gul'dan when you cap out at 5 shards, and typically you can save demonic core procs for movement, noting that they cap out at 4. Typically you can sit around 2 procs and be safe of not overcapping. However, for the most part, spending them freely is not really too much of an issue 99% of the time. Make sure you prioritize your dogs. The idea of your windows between your tyrants is you want to be spending as many shards as you can in order to get the CD back up faster. And see here how I'm about 25 seconds left. This is a perfect time for me to start my next ramp. I have 3 procs of Demonic Core, so I'm going to go ahead and go in, cast my Vile Fiend, my dogs, a few Hand of Gul'dan casts. Looks like I can get 1 more 2-shard proc, and then go as soon as it comes back off cooldown. So the idea there was it had about 25 seconds left. That's when I thought about starting my next ramp. It was Soul Rot into Vile Fiend, dogs, a few Hand of Gul'dans just to get that cooldown down to when it came back off, and then going in with the DPS. I would recommend waiting till about 20 seconds left on your Tyrant when you start your next ramp. That's the Soul Rot into the demons, and you'll see here again how that works. I'll wait till my Tyrant is about 20 seconds left, and then I'll start the Grimoire Felguard with the Soul Rot burst windows. So very basic stuff going on here. Just waiting for that cooldown, spending my shards as I do. And now I'm going to be saving my Demonic Core proc. So I'm at that 20-second mark, channeling my Trinket, do my Naya buff, Soul Rot, Vile Fiend, dogs, and about 3 casts of Hand of Gul'dan should do it for me here. And we're in, and we go. Very, very easy. Very smooth, buttery rotation. Nothing crazy going on here. Okay? And now, obviously, if you're getting PI'd, if there's lust available, you might be able to fit in more casts of Hand of Gul'dan, stuff like that. But typically speaking, saving a couple Demonic Core procs 20 seconds before your Tyrant comes back up. Usually that's the last set of dogs that have faded before it comes up. Setting that ramp at about 20-25 seconds is usually a pretty safe mark. As you play around more with it, you'll get to know. But the important thing is you want to be using it as it comes back off cooldown. You want to set it so that your ramps line up and work really well, so that when you're finished with your ramp, getting all of your demons out, that cooldown has about 1 second left, or it just came back up on that GCD. So again here, same thing. 20 seconds left, start my next ramp. Very, very easy stuff. And all of these shards that I'm using right now for the imps are things that buff my Tyrant, but more importantly, just reduce that 20 seconds duration, so I'm able to extend that Vile Fiend and able to extend that Dreadstalker. Very, very easy, very cozy. Okay, great. So that's the single target, very basic. Went over that enough. It's done and dry. There's tons of videos out there on it. Go ahead and watch those. Become a Demo Warlock single target god. Alright, let's talk about a little bit about the more spicy burst AoE and show some boss examples of that. So, Demo Warlock burst AoE kind of follows suit to the same sort of themes that you're doing on single target. Just the way that you implement it on boss fights is what's going to lend you to do a lot of DPS. So that's why I showed that single target portion first. So Tyrant has that unique ability of extending your demon's durations by 15 seconds. So if you're able to cast 3 or 4 Hand of Gul'dans before you press your Demonic Tyrant, that means you can kind of store up a bank of imps. And this bank of imps is extremely important to doing a ton of AoE DPS. And Demo Warlock can do a ton of AoE DPS given the right conditions. So, when you have your Demonic Tyrant up, and you're spamming a bunch more Hand of Gul'dans, you're building up that imp bank, and then when it finally fades, you get this buff called Tyrant Soul, which increases the damage that your demons deal by 16%. So you have this huge bank of demons of these huge amount of buffed imps that you can use to then implode on the target to deal an insane amount of DPS. You can also then use your demonic strength with that Tyrant Soul buff to add on to that AoE burst damage, and the amount of DPS that you can do in a short period of time is absolutely unbelievable, and I'll show you how to implement that onto some boss encounters. So I'll show you a brief example here of what I mean in terms of that AoE burst ramp setup. So it's very similar and follows directly from that single target rotation I showed earlier. So Soul Rot, Vile Fiend, Shadow Bolt, Dogs, Hand of Gul'dan. I'll get to do a little bit more here because I got a dog proc. Not too much more because I don't have a whole lot of haste, but... And now we go. And what we're focused on here is spending as many shards as I can during this window so that as soon as that Tyrant fades, I have a really nice imp bank built up. And I'm ready to go. So you see here, as soon as it fades, I have about 16 imps. I go in with them. Boom. Tons of AoE burst from that implosion. Okay? And that's what you're looking for. Now, common mistakes that I see people making when they're playing Demonology is they use that implosion a little bit too fast. And what I mean by that is they get cold feet and they press their implosion during their Tyrant. And I would say that almost 10 times out of 10, you can just wait until your Tyrant fades and then press those imps. However, as soon as that Tyrant fades, you need to be pushing the implosion button, because then you're going to start losing the imps that you had out beforehand. Okay? And the way that this works on boss fights, like Soul Render and like Sylvanas, is you can actually delay or do a later Tyrant setup to make it so that that particular set, that 15 seconds, ends right when the ads are ready to be bursted down. So, on a boss fight like Soul Render, what you can actually do is delay your opener and prep for that AoE burst. And the way that you do that is you try to build up demonic core procs in your opener. So you use your first set of dogs, and you're trying to use a lot of Hand of Gul'dans to get demonic core procs, and you're saving them all up. You're saving them up. I didn't get any. Unlucky. I get my 2 demonic core procs. Okay, ads are spawning in 15 seconds. I need to go. Soul Rot, GFG, Vile Fiend. Getting my demons out, trying to be really quick about it, getting as many demonic core procs as I can, going with as many imps as I can. Ads spawning really soon. Maybe get one more imp in. Okay, got my imps in. Okay, Tyrant. Okay, I got my imp bank. We're Gucci. Even got more shards from my other dogs. Usually not worth it for a single target, but here we'll have even more imps. Imp bank. Go imp bank. And you'll see I'm actually able to build up a lot more imps by delaying and getting those additional procs. As soon as Tyrant fades, implode with those imps. Blade Storm. And then summon more imps. And that burst AoE is really high. And you can see my implosion damage is actually higher than last time, because I delayed my Tyrant and built up some resource for it, but also it just lines up with the ad spawns on this particular boss fight. So let's go ahead and look at a clip of this happening in real time and kind of see what that looks like on a boss encounter. So here we have Soul Render. And you're going to see that exact same thing happening. So on Soul Render, we're lusted, we're going in on the boss, and I'm not using my cooldowns. Now, I don't recommend you play this way on this boss fight if your guild doesn't need it. I highly recommend just to use your cooldowns for single target and don't think about too much on the ads. But you'll see here, I'm saving my demonic core procs. Even though it's movement, I'm not using them. I want them for that ramp. I want them for the ramp. I'm building. Okay? And then here it goes, that exact same fluid single target opening rotation, except I get to get more Hand of Gul'dans in because we're lusted and I'm getting power infusioned. So let's just see how many imps I'm able to build. I know the precise timing of the ad spawns. How many imps am I at? I'm at 12 imps, 14 imps. Building, 17 imps. Building. Demonic Storm when they all get grouped up. Still building, and then I send. Okay? They all get grouped up on top of the damage circles, and I send. So I'm building, I'm building. I'm building. How many imps do I get to? It was around 17, and I probably could have done an extra hand of Gul'dan and not been as greedy and sent right away, like I was telling you about the mistake that a lot of people made, which is what I did here. But I'm at about 17 imps, and all the mobs are getting grouped up, and you don't even see me on the damage meter, and then look what happens. They get grouped up on the thing, I send in my AoE burst, and it's actually just crazy how much burst DPS that Demo Lock can do. And the thing about this is you actually don't lose hardly any single target by doing this on this particular boss encounter, or any boss encounter for that fact. You hardly lose any single target, because you're only really losing the damage that those imps would deal after your Tyrant is faded, which isn't a whole lot in particular when you take into consideration that they're also dealing implosion damage to the boss. Now, you'll see the same thing happening in a few seconds here, and that's kind of how the timings on this boss fight work throughout. You prep your next Tyrant at the almost exact same time when that big ad spawns. And it just works out so nicely for how this set works for AoE damage. And this is what I mean by boss encounters. Demon Warlock cooldowns aren't really that interesting as a whole in terms of they're you kind of just do what Tyrant do. But your timings on the boss encounter of when you press them can actually work out really well. So you see here I'm just building my imp set. Just building my imp set. I don't care. Building my imp set. Tyrant fades. And I go in. I have 15 to 17 imps. I have my demonic strength. I have my AoE. And you can see the DPS. You know, I don't know how long. We're at 2 minutes into the fight and I'm at 17,000 DPS. And it can carry on throughout the whole boss encounter. So if you're playing more of an AoE type setup for Soul Render, and by AoE I mean you want to do damage to ads, you can play this way and sacrifice a little bit of single target to do a lot more overall DPS, and it will look something like this in terms of how you want to delay your cooldowns. Now, I have some other examples from this week where we are on Mythic Sylvanas, and the same sort of themes are happening, and this is how you get better and how you translate ideas like that onto other boss encounters. So for Sylvanas, let's not pick this particular timestamp. Let's just pick the opener. Same sort of things going on in the opener. I'm saving my AoE damage for when the domination arrows come. And it's pretty standard. So the domination arrows come, and I have all of those imps and that demonic strength burst saved up, and you can see me shoot up on the meter again here. And same thing later on in the fight. You have to recognize when those damage patterns are happening. Let me see if I can find it here. So, right now, on this particular portion of the encounter, you can see the same sort of situations happening where my Tyrant just faded. I have this imp bank, and tons of mobs are coming in, and I'm able to get a ton of burst AoE DPS on those ads. You see my DPS shoot up from 9k to 12, almost 12k on a 3-minute encounter, because of thinking about how that AoE burst setup will work on different setups like this. Now, we're not all that good at Sylvanas yet. These are very early pulls, which is why this example is not really fluid yet. I'm still learning how to time my cooldowns properly in order to make this work, but the ideas are still there in terms of how you want to ramp that AoE. So hopefully you learned something in this video. Hopefully it helps you a little bit think about Demon Warlock in a different light, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.